Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Simply Sketchy, where I bring a random, what would you call it, kidnap victim? Yeah, let's go with that. Kidnap victim to just hang out with me, talk about random stuff, and then I draw random stuff while we talk about random stuff. Today, I have managed to corral an American from his safety of his home without getting shot, surprisingly. I'm getting better at this. And today's
You
subject,
you
well,
captured me at a gun-free zone.
yes, and that's your fault for going into a gun-free zone. Now you've learned. But since you're already here, I can at least give you the common courtesy of saying what we're gonna do today. What is today's subject?
Well, we're going to delve a bit into Battlestar Galactica. And by delve, I mean kind of touch on both series a little bit rather than just go full whole hog either with the original one and a half series and then the reimagined series.
Mm.
So yes, and I am the Bleach Demon. By the way, everyone listening in, if you aren't familiar with my voice, you should be, but you're not.
Well, I didn't really give an introduction because I'm already too used to you, so I'm putting the blame on you. I am faultless.
No, I distracted you with telling everyone how you kidnapped me in a gun-free zone.
Yeah, again, your own fault. It's only gun-free because you allow it to be.
Look, it was a bar. You can't carry firearms in bars in my state, so.
Okay, I can see how that is actually a thing, so yeah.
See?
So, when you want to capture a bleach, guys, do it just as he exits a bar. Or enters a bar.
See, ladies? It's not that hard.
Oh, we got
And then
hard.
it becomes harder.
We're both, our brains are in the same mire. So,
I prefer to call it a swamp.
nah, I want to drain those.
I mean, we've got a great dismal one. We've got also the Okefenokee. That's a nice big swamp. And the bayou.
Search the
And then-
bayou.
Yes. No, don't purge the bayou.
Search
We got
the
crayfish. Oh, okay. Yes. So, and Trim, looks like you are starting off on the Centurion 005 series,
Yeah,
which is kind of a bridge between the two series.
Yeah, it's essentially less of a dude in a suit and more of a proper robot, and kind of at least in Reimagined series. I haven't watched the whole thing. I've only watched a few episodes, and due to personal opinions about the humans in Battlestar Galactica Reimagined series, I kind of couldn't finish it. But we might get into that later. The point is, uh,
So have you watched the original series as well?
No, I haven't. And I tried to search
So-
for a place to find it, but unfortunately, it's eluded me.
It is rather difficult because it's still in syndication here in the U.S. It's kind of it's one of those. It's like on the back burner of like the old re-airing TV shows, but you know, it's still out there. It's still actually being aired in certain markets.
Really? The old series?
Yeah.
Huh.
Actually, that was my first encounter with Battlestar Galactica at all. Was my local television station had what was it? It was like Me TV or something like that, and basically they just like replayed old TV shows, and they actually had Battlestar Galactica on there, and that's the first. So that would have been about 2010 that I actually watched the original series, and because I didn't have cable, I didn't, and I honestly was questioning whether the reimagined series would be any good, So I just skipped that entirely, and now I've seen both series in their entirety.
Yeah.
And
Is that kind of
I'm
what brought this conversation up in the first place, wasn't it?
yes. And I gotta say both series are good in their own right, but there are definitely significant problems with them both as well.
Yeah. Like, if I may just get this rant out of the way, the humans in the Reimagined series, again, I have only seen that one, and the humans in the Reimagined series are, they're not riding on the short bus. They're getting an even shorter bus to drive them to school. That is, they are without a doubt the dumbest human beings I've ever had the dissatisfaction to ever watch in any sci-fi ever. You want to know why, Bleach? Oh, by the way, there's
You're going
gonna
to
be
tell me, I'm sure.
yeah. Oh, by the way, there's gonna be spoilers here. So,
Yeah.
the reason why is because the Cylons, Bleach. What are they?
Well, which series are we talking first?
I'm talking both of them. What are the Cylons? Like, what is their
Well,
nature? Are they artificial? Are they organic? Are they mechanical?
so in the original series, they were mechanical purely. So semi-sentient because they were based off of some lizard species that evolved and built them to be these semi-sentient soldiers, and then turned against them and had them wiped out.
Yep.
And then in the Reimagined series, you've got kind of the semi-sentient mechanical, sentient mechanical, and then you've got the skin job, which are basically just people grown in vats. That's the best way I can describe it.
People grown in vats with weird spines, from what I could tell. But yeah,
Yeah.
that means these are, in the most dumbest down sense, robots or androids or artificial intelligence. Now,
Yeah.
when you're fighting artificial intelligence, what is one of the most common ways they might try to attack you? Well, software, of course. Hacking
Yeah.
you. You know, taking out your system so it's easier to just hit a sitting duck.
Correct.
In
Which was
Battlestar,
which was the premise of how the surprise attack was carried out
yes,
initially.
because the first episode I watched of Battlestar Galactica, or actually it was the second. The first one was it was more in the middle of the series. Then I watched the first episode because Norwegian broadcasting schedules are weird.
Mm,
Anyway, the point is that I got to see how the colonies fell, and it was because humanity had upgraded all of their warships, an incredibly large fleet, and every single one of them had been upgraded, quote unquote, to be fully automatic or digital,
correct.
foregoing their analog systems, which means every single one of them was vulnerable to, you guessed it, cyber warfare, which is incidentally
Hmm.
the way the Cylons wiped out all of humanity and turned it into one of those stories where humanity has to run for their lives for the entire series.
Well, most of the series there's some points when it gets changed around, but I get your point.
Yeah, it is.
Um,
There. It is just a. It would be so much better if it was just a brute force attack that just overwhelmed them. Like, imagine they had a holiday or something instead, and the Cylons just brute forced them out of nowhere. Instead of doing this whole overly explained, oh, they were vulnerable because of this one super popular dude who convinced every military commander of humanity that removing the analog option of their ships was the greatest idea ever, especially when the Cylons, a cybernetic race, are
Well,
totally not gonna hack our stuff, guys.
see, I think that was one of the biggest plot holes that they should not have really touched on. They should have left that open ended
Yeah, it would have been
rather
so
than
much
going
better.
into the detail of how Balthazar screwed everybody over. Where it's like, you know, just say, yeah, he was working on like this new program that was compromised by Caprica 6, and not have it that as explicitly said. Now,
Yeah.
I think the one thing you have to keep in mind with that was they were not originally planning for it to be a full-blown series, which is ironic because the original series wasn't intended to be a TV show, like a weekly TV show either.
So it is a true sequel to the Battlestar series, eh?
In all the wrong ways.
But yeah, it would have been so much easier to swallow if it'd been like, oh, it knocked them out temporarily, and as the ships were trying to get their systems, because would understand it was like a temporary thing, and ships were starting to get back online, but before they could fully finish, the Cylons would have attacked and just destroyed them instead of, no, all our ships are just knocked out and nobody got away except for 2.
Right. Well, the Galactica, obviously, and then the Pegasus. And
Yeah.
it's like,
And it's clear that nobody with any kind of real military know-how. I mean, I'm not saying that they should have hired a 5-star general to be an advisor there, but have someone with any kind of defensive, like an idea of defense.
a student of military history. Yeah,
Right.
that. Yep.
Because there's a lot of of course it's very typical in like at least the 2090s to not really think much about those kind of details. So I'm not gonna
Well,
fault them too much for that, but it's still just kind of annoying that they let
the
it's just
the,
so
the
obvious.
biggest flaw, I think, was obviously being that explicit about the nature of how some of that happened. Although I will say, in the defense of it, because part of the reasoning why the Galactica survived was it was an old analog system. But I think it should have gone down a slightly different path where, the Galactica wasn't getting these updates because it was being turned into a museum ship, and say the admiral on the Pegasus refused to get the upgrade, or they were on the last of the list or something like that.
Yeah.
And that way, you could justify that a little bit better, little less clunky. But again, you've got to think of it in terms of they were trying to tell a very tight, 2-hour story. So they figured, well, we might as well be explicit. And then that caused problems as it went into 4 seasons.
And there's a lot of small things that are annoying. Like, if I'm not quite certain, but isn't the Pegasus kind of a contentious part in the fandom?
I'll be honest, I don't know about the fandom side of things. I just know what I watch, and I usually don't get wrapped up in fan stuff too much, just because it's people never go into either the depth or direction that I think would be interesting most of the time.
Honestly, that's probably for the best.
But yeah, no, I think the destruction of the Pegasus was portrayed and referred to on screen as kind of one of the dumbest possible solutions. Just because that really should have been something that was not. They should not have had it played out where suddenly Leodama is like, yeah, I'm gonna go help the old man all of a sudden, and rather than it should have just been, yeah, no, but both are going. Yes, the complement of the Pegasus Raptor or Vipers and Raptors were being left behind for fleet protection, but they were both going to drop in at the same time and engage the base stars.
Yeah.
But that, unfortunately, it's like, oh, we're gonna make it a big surprise, and like, no, that's not how militaries work, and that I think was one of the biggest flaws.
Yeah. I did see it though. Again, most of watching Battlestar has been just sporadic. I've seen the last episode. I haven't seen all the middle episodes. So it's very spread out. So I can't actually say that I'm any kind of in any way proficient with Battlestar Galactica.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just half-baked opinion for me. So I will be honest about that.
No, that's fair. That's fair.
Yeah, so I'm by no means an expert. That's kind of your thing because you've seen all the series.
Yes.
But from what I could see, because I did watch the fall of Pegasus, at least most of it, and
now are you talking? Because there was like an independent, was it Razor or something like that, where it was kind of like an independent telling of what happened to the Pegasus, or are you talking about the episodes inside the series?
It was an independent telling. Essentially a dude who did a summary of it, and he also had a pretty good. It's a pretty recent video. It's a channel I tend to watch a lot. Science Insanity on YouTube. They do a lot of good commentary. If the way he speaks is a little bit. I like it, though I don't think everyone else might like it. But he makes really good sci-fi content.
Okay.
And he's explicitly just focusing on the fun parts, on what he likes, dislikes, and he doesn't even do anything in a political way, so, that's refreshing.
Good.
And he has a solid grip on everything he speaks about, which I do like. And he did explain, he came up with an alternative way that the Pegasus could have been destroyed, because in the episode, Pegasus was almost completely fine, right? It was as close to being unharmed as it could be in that setting.
Correct, and then Leodama decided to go charging in when, personally, what I think should have happened, because they demonstrated it many times prior, would just be like a quick FTL jump by the Galactica out of harm's way and let the Pegasus draw in the base stars, because it was kind of OP compared to the base stars.
Yeah. So, but what I've heard is that he essentially would have had the Pegasus when it was introduced, or during the series. It should have had sort of clips or flashbacks to seeing how the Pegasus got away, and that unlike the Galactica that essentially just kept the fleet safe, it instead sort of went on a guerrilla war against the Cylons, kicking ass, taking names.
Yeah.
But every single fight would sort of take something from it, right? The Cylons would also be more focused on the Pegasus since it's more of a threat. And gradually, say, as it arrives, you see a heroic shot of the ship, right? Because I have seen that clip, and it's pretty cool. But then it pans out to the other side, and you see this massive scar on its hull, and one of the hangars are also damaged. And it just shows that it's essentially kind of been dying of 1,000 cuts. And the last stand of the Pegasus is essentially just that.
And, I want to say in the original series, it was more like that. It's been a while since I've watched the Living Legend episode in the original Battlestar. Actually, they might have renamed it the same thing in the Reimagined series, come to think of it. But yeah, it's like the beauty of that kind of telling that you're suggesting is that it would have made sense if the Pegasus had been absolutely just eviscerated
right? Or
and
sort of like
damaged.
sort of like a soldier who is still keeping on and still able to throw punches like a god, but you get to see every time he goes out, he has a limp, he has another cut, there's something more. His elbow has been wounded, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he can still fight, he can still punch, but every time he has to guard that one side a bit more. Every time you see the Pegasus attack, it always attacks from its strong side, right?
Right. Well, and so one thing that's kind of coming to mind is seeing the Pegasus, because they talked about scavenging and salvaging off of the civilian ships that followed along with it, eventually impressing the civilians and whatnot. And I think what would have been really more interesting, what would have been really cool, is take your idea, but also show where it's like the hull of the Pegasus has been repaired. Where, yes, they're still in fighting order.
Mm-hmm.
And that way it's still a very OP ship. But start showing, like, oh, this part of the hull came from this civilian freighter. Or, this civilian, like pieces and patches that are mixed and matched. And just, completely you know, cobbled together parts. Like one of the launch bays is actually like a cobbled together freighter or something that's been converted.
Yeah. So yeah, that kind of like what I got from Science and Sanity, but more, just more. You
Mm-hmm.
know, it just build more on it. See how it's been forced to add things that doesn't really fit in. But it would still have that repair bay, that production bay of Raiders. Like one
Oh
side would
yeah.
still be fully functioning, right? It's still a powerhouse.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's the other thing. Why would you sacrifice a Viper production facility when you know it just made no sense to me. I mean, just no sense. Because that was just one of those plot points in the second series or second season. Yeah, production of Vipers and the stealth Viper and all that. And it's like, why would you sacrifice that?
It's
That's the lifeline.
the only reason it went in to save the Galactica is because the Galactica is the named hero ship. Like another thing
Mm-hmm.
they could have done is have the Galactica have its final death, and in sort of a in honor of the Galactica's death, the Pegasus would rename itself to the Galactica.
Or well, I don't. Well, there's a sailor's curse side of things where you don't rename ships in that manner, which I think they carried over in some of the way they were telling stories. But if, say, elements of both ships were so heavily damaged, excuse me,
That's right.
um, that that they basically took parts of the Pegasus and built them back into the Galactica. So
Sort of build a
basically,
new ship out of both of them.
right, exactly, and had the Galactica be the main backbone. But it's like the launch bays, the construction facilities,
Yeah, so
all of like
both survived the attack of the Cylons, but it you couldn't have both. Instead, you decide to have one.
correct, and the casualties would have been so high, and things like that. So you can have the Galactica rebuilt with the parts of the Pegasus, which again they talked about in canon that the Pegasus had done, and then just have the Galactica because it's the hero ship, but have it like significantly less damaged or something.
Yeah, that would in turn make the Galactica more powerful too. So honestly, that would be a much better way of doing it.
Yeah, yeah, I think so.
Yeah, and
And
also
yeah,
then you would have the heroic escape from like this absolutely doomed situation.
mm-hmm.
The Pegasus comes to save the Galactica, then the Galactus saves the Pegasus. They both get out, and maybe one or two base stars remain. Because another thing that Science and Sanity talked about is like having a ridiculous amount of base stars. This is a plan they had to take out the Pegasus. Their
Mm-hmm.
fear hasn't, in his way of saying it, is their their threat wasn't the Galactica, it was the Pegasus.
Correct. Yeah, and that's the way it was portrayed in the show in a lot of ways. Um, which to me, it's like how interesting would it be when you've got like a skeletonized, cut up Hulk that had been the Pegasus
Yeah.
left as a trap,
Ooh.
and you get a swarm of base stars in, and the leftover Hulk of the Pegasus. You could do it with proximity or someone who self-sacrifices or something, and just like wipes out 5 base stars because all the nuclear components and FTL system of the Pegasus that couldn't be salvaged gets set off and just wipes out
Yeah.
5 base stars. That
It
would
would
be
kind of make
fascinating.
the Cylons more of a threat too, because they kind of became the monster of the week kind of thing.
Yeah, that honestly, that was one of the frustrating things towards the end of the series was they weren't a threat anymore. And I'm glad they stopped at 4 seasons, because if they'd tried to go any further, it would have sucked. It would have been horrifically boring.
So now we actually covered two things that kind of proves that the humans in Battlestar Galactica aren't really worth any.
Well, yes
Personal
and no.
relationships are one thing though, but as a whole, the humans in Battlestar Galactica, it's kind of surprising they got as far as they did. Let's be honest.
Well, I mean, when you have a woman president.
Uh, oh my
Uh
god.
huh. Yeah.
I just fucking remember. Oh, Sebastian, it's
Yeah.
been long enough. I'm allowed to swear now. God damn it.
uh, you know, but on the plus side, they did do a number of things decently well. I think they should, did a better showing of the downfall of the 12 colonies,
Hmm.
and compared that to the original, where it just felt like it kind of happened. Wasn't this gigantic cataclysmic event? Um, but on the other hand, one thing that I really got annoyed with is somehow they kept going back to Caprica. I was like, why the no? Stop going back to Caprica, damn it! Just stop.
Make it a journey outwards. Try to see if they can go to new places.
Yeah, on your way to Earth, and
Yeah.
that's where the 2 series depart dramatically. Is Earth in the old series was our Earth. It's just the way it was.
Yeah.
And then the new series, the Earth that they discover is it's the Cylon homeworld, the skin suit Cylon homeworld. And they've wiped out humanity, which that kind of gets me into fan theory time, where the original series and the reimagined series are actually the same continuity, the same galaxy. You had the first series, and they found Earth after wiping out the Cylons, which they didn't do in the show. But I'm saying for the sake of my telling, they wiped out the Cylons. So then they millennia passed, Earth essentially becomes Kobol, and then they have another mass exodus, and then elements that are left on Earth create the new Cylons, and for some reason plagiarize their past memories. I don't know. Maybe there's a cultural zeitgeist kind of thing in there, and then
It's just that
they
an effective
recreate
design.
it. Yeah, I. But the thing that it's like it kind of works where it's like, okay, you have the original series. They had to go to Earth. They repopulate, then they re-expand, wipe themselves out because well they became stupid in the century. So that fits into your characterization of the humans and in the 12 colonies. And then history repeats itself or rhymes or what have you, however you want to characterize that. But to me, it in my head canon, it's like, okay, this at least makes sense, and why the Cylons of Earth did what they did. That at least makes some sense. Rather than, hey, you've got two independent species that kind of create themselves. Because in Caprica, they create the Cylons, and then the Cylons rebel. But then later in the Reimagined series, you have the final five are originally the Cylons from Earth who flee, who encounter the new Cylons, and it gets really stupid and messy.
So, Layman, what are the final five?
So they are skin job Cylons that.
Okay, maybe you could I'm sorry for just jumping in, but I just
No.
completely forgot that for the people who don't know much about the Cylons, I'm currently drawing the classic slash first Cylon War Cylons. These are just humanoid ones, unupgraded, non-techno-organic, right?
Yes. That they are in the original series, they're the big bads, obviously, in the Centurions. And then in the Reimagined series, this is the first Cylon War Cylons. And they also make an appearance towards the end of the series when everything's kind of falling apart, with the Cylon Rebellion.
Mm-hmm.
And personally, I like that design a lot more than the Reimagined, only because the Reimagined ones, and you said this earlier, look a bit much like General Grievous from Star Wars.
It's not just General Grievous from Star Wars, it's a lazy General Grievous from Star Wars. Bezek,
True.
would you mind putting up a picture of the two Cylons we're talking about? Just the first Cylon War Cylons look like this, and then you have the reimagined, sleeker, taller Cylons. I dare say they seem a bit lazier in the design. It's like they saw Star Wars in 2003 and thought like, oh, General Grievous and Super Battle Droids, they're cool. Let's use them instead.
Yeah, and the original ones do, and because they were very much look like the man in a suit thing from the late 70s and whatnot. But I think it's actually a better design in a lot of ways because it's not like the Swiss Army knife of enemies, which the reimagined ones, it's like, oh, they've got integrated weapons systems, they've got this, that, and the other. It's very, very clunky, very. I won't say organic because it's not supposed to be, but you can see where it is inspired by humanity rather than, hey, we've got cheap CGI, let's go out and draw something. And to me, that makes a difference.
Also, they're more bulkier, more intimidating. the tall and slim ones, they can take like bullet fire, right, and still
Mhm.
keep at you. They are dangerous. The Cylons, generally, just Cylons are scary. They're dangerous, but these ones, they're just more bulky and intimidating. You know, and also calling them Centurions. These fit the name Centurion, while the other ones, they seem lazy and generic.
Mhm.
If that is a word I can use.
I don't know if I'd quite go that far, but yeah, they're definitely not as kind of human designed. Yeah, I mean, obviously they are, but it's just like you compare like Art Deco versus say 1980s um, aesthetics, and I hate saying those words. I kind of want to. Anyway, not going to make threats on YouTube. um, but it's very much like overly elegant, overly designed, where the original just are brutal looking. They look functional. They look more like they will come in and kill you, and the other one's like, well, you're spindly enough. If I just make you trip.
Yeah. Also, by the way, we have the magic power of best X editing. So if you say something too bad, you can always bleep it out.
Yeah, I try to self censor. That way, I'm trying to save him a bit of work.
Oh, man, why are you so considerate?
Yeah.
What's next? You want to try to make me try to be considerate towards him?
I mean, I did keep you from cursing for the first 5 minutes.
Huh. Wow, you actually did.
I'm just that damn good.
America.
Exactly.
The power of the Second Amendment and guns. There you go.
Yeah.
But yeah, and of course, as much as the commentary I have on the design of, again, it doesn't suck. It's not a bad design, but comparing it to the original Cylons, and especially the Cylon Centurions that appear later in the series, I find them inferior design-wise. But one thing I do like is the thing I've been doodling up in the corner here, the Cylon base star, and where they get the organic side there on the base starship, on the ship design,
Hmm.
that's good. That I like, because what if I probably you could tell this better than me, but it as part of humanity's fleeing through the stars to avoid the Cylons essentially have their own story of how they are evolving themselves, right?
Yes. Yes. So, I mean, it starts off with well, so you've got the Cylons who are based off of like basically pure mechanical sides of things. So that's where you get like the first series Centurion. That's where you get the reimagined series Centurion, and then you get into the biological evolution of it. And what's interesting is the so the early series Cylons are portrayed as even in both series as kind of like a almost like a Star Trek Borg, where it's like they share not a consciousness so much as they share kind of a similar mindset. Certain because they talk about the original Cylons basically became monotheist um, versus the rest of the colonies where they're basically using Greek gods.
So it's kind of like that the Cylons are they're not controlled in a hive mind, but more like they have a programming that lets them work together in a way, right?
Yeah, it's more of a like it's very hierarchical,
Hmm.
and then they show with the organics um, that they're more democratic is the only way I can express, but it's like, but only the skin jobs have the ability to make the decisions because of an inhibitor chip that's been planted in the newer Cylons. And yeah, it kind of it's kind of a mess in that regard as far as the storytelling. I think it was very clunky and poor on their part. Um, but that
Being
said,
an
at least
oppressor,
it's
right?
interesting.
Because there has to be an oppressor even among the bad guys to make the rebellion bad guys better, right? I
Oh,
mean, it's the
true.
easiest.
Yeah.
It is the easiest storyline for like a redeemed enemy, in a way.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's the weird part about the new series, and I'm not entirely on board with it. Is where you've got the one group of Cylons that are their skin jobs, but they've got the liberated Centurions that side with humanity, and it just feels weird. I'm not gonna lie. It's kind of like you shouldn't be the same on the same side now. Maybe not necessarily in in opposition, but yeah, it just feels really weird.
This is the time I should tell that since Trim has a technological debuff, sometimes my technology goes haywire. Everything I touch, actually. But fortunately, it seems like it happens less as it used to after I got myself a new headset. But as long as you tell me whenever I drop out, it should be fine.
I have been.
Yeah, so let's just keep going with that and hope that it works out, because it used to be worse. It used to be a lot worse.
Yeah, well,
Picking what I can
yeah.
get.
Hmm.
But yeah, so yeah, now I forgot what shit. What is it gonna say? Balls.
Balls to the czar.
Balls to the walls. Let's go. Woo. Something about
The
Cylon rebelling inwards. Essentially, I like the idea of it though, since they have the inhibitor chip. Like Cylons going against
Mhm.
the status quo of fighting humans all the time. Because
Yeah, yeah.
if I remember correctly, in the Reimagined series, the Cylons became they weren't a they weren't a logical robot like Skynet being like, I'm self-aware now. The smartest thing for me to do is exterminate humanity to guarantee my own safety. The Cylons of the Reimagined show kind of went more on a religious crusade.
Yes, yes. That is a very accurate description, and I would almost call the fraction, the fracturing between the two elements
Hmm?
was the the mainline Cylons were kind of the Gatheist Cylons,
Yeah.
and the rebels were the true believers, the religious fanatics almost, which I genuinely think that made them a lot more interesting because it wasn't that they were just programmed in a certain way or just very kind of monolithic in their thinking, but they were all extremely devout, and all of their motivation was on purification of the galaxy. And then later, they had their Reformation moment during the rebellion itself, and suddenly they're maybe not friendly, but they have definitely sided with who they needed to, which was humanity. And one of the themes that had to be introduced was the Cylons were looking down upon humanity because we were imperfect, rather than looking at our imperfection as what made us the most adaptable species in the galaxy.
Because if the Cylons kind of went on a journey where they view themselves as superior to humanity, but their development into their own kind of a species away from us, they kind of became more like us. But the Cylons who ended up being the villains, the bad guy Cylons, who were like I'm gonna call them the mainline Cylons, the usual villainous ones.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, they sort of started embodying everything that is negative with the human condition.
Correct. Yeah, it's the hubris.
Yeah, the bottomless arrogance, the self-destructive self-confidence that would just annihilate them in the end, because they started viewing themselves as gods in ways because of their, you know how they were able to have this rebirth through their ships, right?
Yes. Yeah, the resurrection ship.
Yeah, allowed them to just never truly die.
Correct. And they thought of themselves as immortal beings in that regard. And then once the resurrection ship was destroyed, which is part of the reason why they rebelled, they had that realization that dying without consequence prohibits them from living, which I thought was a fascinating way of thinking about it.
Because life doesn't matter when it's not a risk in it.
Correct.
I mean, to be scared of death is just core thing of being alive, and if you don't have that fear, what drives you?
Yeah. Well, it kind of gets into that philosophy of if you have nothing to lose, then what does it matter? And that's a dangerous way of living in a lot of ways. And when you do have that that mortality, that final end, it opens you up to experiencing the world in a much deeper and more meaningful way. And I think that's what they were playing with in that. Oh, this is coming along nicely, sir.
I'm just loving this. Again, the brush I'm using is the uh, pencil construction pencil from Jazz's. Shad M. Brooks's brother, the artist.
Ooh,
And
okay.
this one is so good. I love it. The way it reacts to like pressure
Mm-hmm.
as I draw, and it just, as you can see, I can make the fading that I want. It's
Mm,
flexible. All I need in one.
yeah, that's really cool.
Yes.
That's really cool.
And also, this is the first time I draw a full. Well, the second time I draw a automaton, but the first time I draw an actual robot, fully metal one. So yay!
So this is the real reason you wanted to do this.
Kinda. It's
Yeah.
again, I'm doing this to try to test myself, and to be honest, to draw robots. As much of a Transformers fan I am, I suck at playing Transformers. Dear Lord, dude, if you've seen the robots I've been trying to draw before, you would just cry.
Oh, I have.
It would like blaspheming to Robo Jesus, that is Optimus Prime, hallowed be his name. You can't tell me the Optimus Prime isn't Jesus, by the way. Oh Lord, but yeah, one day we need to try to do a Transformers episode, but I need to get a lot better at doing robots.
Yep. Well, it's like And you have to remember, for me, it's like all I know is old school, old school. Transformers, anything.
which is good. G1 all the way, though there are a few series you really should watch because they're damn cool as well.
Hmm.
Prime is worth it. Transformers Prime is worth it. Transformers Animated also worth it, and of course Beast Wars, which is the direct sequel series to Transformers G1.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, literally a direct sequel,
Hmm.
and it's awesome. Anyway, now we're focused on the wrong robots here.
Yeah, yeah. And actually, that's a good question. Are Cylons really robots in the reimagined series?
Well, they start
That's like.
off as it, but they develop into their own thing. That's kind of what I like about them. They are
Mhm.
in the series. They are these. They are robots, both in the pop culture way of just being machines, but they're
Yeah.
also robots in that they are slaves. Because if I remember correctly, robot means slave. In a way, if
Hmm.
it's either slave or servant.
Okay. I mean, I'd need to look at that definition exactly, but
I think I've heard it somewhere, though it might be from a Simon Pegg movie. So
ah. So take it with a pint of salt.
take it with a fistful of salt that you punch in someone's mouth.
Hey, that's what I'm here for.
Hell yeah! But yeah, so I want to call them robots in both sense,
Hmm.
but then they become cybernetic in that they're techno-organic. You know, flesh.
Yeah.
They're essentially flesh inside metal shells, and
Yes.
then they start
That.
to develop their own sentience, which really start changing the field here.
Well, that's the weird part with the Cylons, because they do run the gambit from purely robotic with an AI, and then kind of that bioorganic, and then fully organic towards the end, and that's what kind of like I find fascinating about them is they're almost like augmented humans.
When you see a raider get shot, you don't see it just explode. You see it gush blood.
Yes, and that's the mind-blowing part of that. And and they do show in an episode where it's like the raiders are almost grown, and because of the
It's
way that the interiors are of them, and that's like, excuse me, what the hell is this? You know, but
honestly
yeah,
though,
it's really cool.
yeah, and my own personal views, it is the uh, what is it? The combination of organic and mechanic, which essentially turns them into the perfect spacefaring race.
Hmm.
They are
And
the because the
it also makes
humans.
them
Mhm.
very good villains, because it crosses that you want to say, oh well, they're just machines, and then the more you learn about them, the more they're like, okay, what is
What are
their
you?
core? What's
Yeah,
the core of what they are?
and what the reimagined series really gets right, it's the personal questions, the personal drama between characters. Again, the human strategy is retarded. The Cylon strategy is, well, retarded. Again, they should have had someone with military experience to help there. It would have made it so much
Yeah.
better. But when it comes to development of characters, that's where they get it right. And
Hmm.
especially the development of Cylons. Like you have the true believer Cylons who follow essentially their path of enlightenment and in
Hmm.
the end win their freedom and just leave. They leave into the stars to find their own destiny.
Yes.
While the
After
old Cylons,
genociding the other ones.
well, they kind of brought it to itself when you collect your entire species onto a superstructure. Of course, it is ridiculously overpowered, but the superstructure is on the edge of the accretion disk of a black hole.
Mm-hmm.
You're kind of like, again, I say that the villainous Cylons are an embodiment of humanity's negative sides. I'm not kidding, dude. They
No,
literally
you're
are.
absolutely correct.
The arrogant stupidity of like, yes, we do this because we can, completely ignoring the strategic retardation in it.
And you know, weirdly enough, you know, the because we can side of things, I think will doom humanity regardless.
Oh yeah, that is that is the Fermi paradox, I believe. There are many other parts of
Yeah.
that one, but in that theory, but it, nobody seems to think about just the sheer arrogance of a sentient race.
No, you know, it's something that I think we've lost in amongst ourselves, and I think that's what makes shows like, you know, Battlestar Galactica and, you know, good Star Trek worth watching. Is it does kind of address the what if we go too far? What if we decide that, you know, we're the supreme beings in our own little mind, and that just we end up wiping ourselves out.
Comes before the fall, or as Dooku said it, twice the pride, double the fall.
That works too.
Yep. It's a truism at this point, because
Yeah,
the most arrogant douchebags are usually the one who hits the ground the hardest.
exactly.
Karma
And
is a thing, ladies and gentlemen.
yeah, I just I gotta say, you know, because I rewatched it, you know, before coming on here. Some of the things where Battlestar Galactica doesn't hold up well is when they do like the big CGI stuff. But again, this is, you know, but the nice thing is they use it sparingly, and that is something where I wish more, you know, productions took that in mind, and it's like, hey, yeah, I'm gonna go and like do just basic CGI, but not overdo it.
Here's the thing about CGI. CGI should only be used to enhance practical effects. Of course, you can have 3D series, sure, in an animation. But when making a series that involves real people, you need to use practical effects and enhance it with CGI. Like, the best example in my book is the Dark Crystal. Of course, there's no people there, but it is a series made with just puppets where CGI is used to enhance their movements, enhance the characters themselves. It is
Oh, okay. Yeah, I've only watched the original Dark Crystal, so.
Yeah, but it's kind of the same principle there, only on steroids.
Well, there's no
on Netflix.
CGI.
Oh, there's
It's all
CGI.
practical effect. No, not really.
You know the laser beams to come out? It's not much at all. You can hardly even say there is. I understand that, but there is some CGI. But in the Netflix series, that the CGI that is used is only used to enhance things or do the motions that the puppets can't possibly do. And it is so fucking good.
Huh.
And that's kind of what I want to see more of. People just like make a new Battlestar Galactica where you use people dressed in Cylon uniforms. Like, it's kind of what made Doctor Who, you know, the good Doctor Who, before they canceled the show.
With the Cybermen.
Yes.
Yeah.
The Daleks, they were all real, except for when you did those massive grand scale. But then the scale of the situation was enough to not focus on the uncanniness of the CGI.
Mm-hmm.
Because everyone.
Although, yeah, there was the Battle of Canary Wharf episode, and that was, oof. It was good, but it was also like, you're doing it a little too much with the close-up with the CGI.
They did. Well, I do believe that they managed to develop their CGI a lot better for when the Parting of Ways came. Now that is a way to end a series.
Yeah. Yeah,
Sorry,
yeah. I, yeah, after Tenet left, I only watched like one season of
Matt,
Targaryen dude. I can't remember the actor's name.
Matt Smith.
Yeah.
Honestly,
Who?
David Tennant is the best Doctor, but Matt Smith, he was a good replacement. He was a
Oh
good
yeah.
Doctor too. But they should have stopped after. They shouldn't have finished all the series with it, and Capaldi just got robbed.
Well, the thing with Doctor Who has the problem of they were able to run from what, like the 1950s into the 1990s uninterrupted, but they knew when to hand off authorship.
Yep.
Where, yeah, the current batch just does not.
What about what current batch?
The guys who were riding up to the end of Matt Smith.
Right, those.
Yeah. It's
Yeah,
like they just kept going back and
yeah, like the worst
writing fanfic.
example. The worst example of what they did in Matt Smith, it kind of showed that they were running out of ideas. It's when they started reusing the Weeping Angels.
Yeah, that
We
should have been a one and done.
Yes, because it is still one of the scariest goddamn episodes of any series I've ever watched that isn't explicitly a horror show. And my god, the Doctor Who could do horror. Like one of your favorite episodes, like Midnight.
Correct.
I know we're now going off topic a bit, but it's kind of in like quality sci-fi, and it is just Midnight is beautiful because of how scary it is, but it also is a one done and you will never see it again. The Weeping Angels is the same. They are only scary because you can't truly beat them except for that one way the Doctor managed to beat them. Trying to make them a race, because in the first episode they're said to be the loneliest existence in the universe, right?
And then suddenly they've got friends and cousins and aunts and uncles and all this crap.
A race that sticks together, and suddenly you see them reproducing, and it's like, no. Keep the mythic, like, they are ancient entities from the beginning of the universe, before the Gallifreyans became Time Lords, right? The most ancient of creatures. And that's why they should have been scary. Like, you don't know how many they are, you don't know where they are the only ones on Earth now the ones captured in their own gaze? That's the scary thing, and the way they ended it, repeating the Doctor's message and showing off the statues around the world.
Yeah.
And what if Earth is just a prison for the angels? Sorry, it's just beautiful.
No, it's interesting, but it's funny. It's one of those like. It almost to me it felt kind of cheap, to be honest. Yeah, the whole
I guess I can see where you're going with it, but to me though, a good horror for me, something that is able to scare me, but also keep me from like the best kind of horror for me is the one I hate and love, is where I'm afraid to turn around after I've seen it. And that's what the Weeping Angels did. I stared at the screen for half an hour because I was a genius and watched it at the middle of the night in absolute darkness.
Well, maybe what scares you and what scares me are two vastly different things.
It is. And for me, the Weeping Angels are peak horror, right? But it's just how not to end up using something too much, to not use up all your ideas. And I guess that's kind of what happened to Battlestar Galactica, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think the where Battlestar Galactica went awry was at least the reimagined series was not having Earth like be the final destination. That fake Earth kind of threw things for a loop to me. And it's
So
like, oh,
where they ended the show wasn't really Earth.
right. It was our Earth, but it wasn't Earth. So it was, yeah. So in the original series, Earth, our Earth, and what they thought was Earth were the same thing. It was just we became primitive and regressed, and it was like 1979 San Francisco version of Earth is what they discovered. And in the reimagined series, it's this irradiated wasteland that had been Earth, where the 13th tribe of humanity got itself wiped out by its own Cylon creation, and then they go and find New Earth, which is our Earth, where there's primitive humanity there. But to me, it's like it didn't sit right entirely. It was kind of like, oh, well, they're still going to end up on Earth, but it's the wrong Earth, or they're going to terraform it or some silly thing, and that just it sat very poorly with me. That said, it's like I'm glad they still ended up on Earth, but with super primitive humanity, and I'm kind of like, it should have been. It should have been like Bronze Age humanity,
Were humans on the New Earth?
Yeah.
How the hell does that make sense?
It doesn't. That's the problem.
So what, the what are you gonna call them? Capricorns? The Battlestar Galactica humans they're not us humans?
No. No, they're it's like they're similar, but they're not exactly the same. Yeah, because they said something like, "Oh yeah, they can interbreed" or something like that, and that's fine and dandy, but I'm sorry, I like the idea of the 13th tribe landing on Earth and kind of regressing, rather than going down this merry rabbit hole of, hey, look at all these things, yada yada yada. So it was, to me, it was a mess.
So I thought what happened was what you just described you wanted to happen.
No.
Oh boy.
Yeah, it's a little messy. Not gonna lie.
Should have won.
Oh, humanity should not have been blindsided.
That too. So what do you think so far?
I like it.
Yeah.
Just just one thing I'm thinking of, and I don't even know how you would draw it in, but with the eye, just you know how the eye is like in constant motion. If there's some way for you to be able to like get a bit of a streak in that or something. Yes.
Dragon Ball.
Yeah, there we go. Honestly, that was one of the things I always found the most intimidating about them conceptually, and again, why I like the older versions, because there's that bigger eye port.
Yeah.
It's just like that constant scanning back and forth.
You don't know where they're looking.
Exactly. And it's like, yeah, the new ones have that, but they're not. It's like that big eyeball kind of concept. It's like big-eyed kids.
Yes.
Always kind of creep people out. That looks good, man.
Thank you. Really good though. And of course, the old Cylons, essentially their catchphrase. What was that again? By your command, right?
By your command, yes. Yep.
Cylons they're cool. They're honestly one of my favorite designs, or rather the first Cylon War Cylons are one of my favorite designs. It's
Mm-hmm.
kind of like same reasons why I really love the Clone Wars in Star Wars. The whole clones versus droids, humanity versus machines.
Mm-hmm.
I've always liked it. And in the Cylons, like, if they've kept it, the Cylons are these originally robots becoming techno-organic. I would have loved if the humans there would have sort of done a similar thing. You know, small mechanical enhancement. Just not going all Borg, right? But like
Mm-hmm.
small supports. Like they have these skeletal enhancement, muscle effects, like and these small things that just helps enhance their brain. So at the
Mm-hmm.
end of the series, there's this kind of difficulty telling who is more of what. Have the it's sort of like they go their opposite ways, right?
Mm-hmm.
Humanity becomes sort of Cylon-y, and Cylons become more human. In the end, they're just this strange midpoint.
Well, that could be interesting.
Yeah, and imagine, and that could be sort of a like I'm just gonna spitball now, and again, I only have passing knowledge of Battlestar, but
Mm-hmm.
oh shit, that's the wrong one. Really. Like, imagine if that was the part where the Cylon rebels connected to humanity. They see this similarity, and it's like, wait, you're kind of like us. They see their fleshy interior combined with the how humanity is using machines to kind of improve themselves, as the Cylons use organic
I
to
think
improve themselves.
they kind of go down that road, but without humanity's augmentation.
I kind of would have loved to see that.
It could be interesting.
Though
Could
then again, it would kind of ruin the whole skin job thing. It's a cool idea, and it gives a face and a different personality to them. So I understand why they added them, but it kind of would have been cool, you know. Cylons uses either designation or these small things, like how the Golden Centurions from the original series, right?
you mean the like the command Imperious commander or whatever he
Yeah,
was?
well, if I remember correctly, the Imperious commander, or the Imperious leaders, were robots made in the direct image of the lizards that they
Yes.
rebelled from.
And then you had the silver, well, the gold centurions who were the combat commanders and all that.
Yeah, so kind of like that, and they would use it kind of like how the battle droids in Star Wars use different colorations to denounce abilities and all that.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Well, and I mean, honestly, that I'm glad they went with something like that. Just because that's kind of what humanity does when it comes to designating between ranks and whatnot.
Yeah, and in some cases they like they custom like I speak like a teenager now. I'm getting tired. Ugh, like oh totally like shoot me. Anyway, tanks can sometimes, or at least in the Second World War, they were allowed to decorate their machines, right? Give it a little
Yeah,
bit of a
and
personality, right?
aircraft. Yep.
Yes, give it a bit of a personality, and having Cylon start to do that. You have the regular designs, right, that denounce your rank, your function, but then you start to
Mm-hmm.
have the those who would become the rebels. They could start using other things just to, like, oh, I use this. This is my thing. I believe
Mm.
this is would be a better use for this is my personal designation.
Mm-hmm.
Have them discover themselves in a different way and express themselves. In a
Yeah, yeah,
non-rainbowy way.
but yeah, it's like kind of like clone troopers in the Clone Wars, where they're starting to develop personalities and um, kind of marking themselves different from the rest of their squad mates and whatnot by
Different
subtle
hairstyles,
means.
different hairstyles, names.
Even graffiti on their armor, stuff like that.
Yep. I mean,
Yeah,
the Clone Wars are the sole reason to why I love the prequels.
I can understand that to an extent. It's still not my thing, but I can at least appreciate that.
I understand. I really get it. It's like, hadn't it been for the Clone Wars, I would have been with Dave on hating on them completely. But the Clone Wars kind of rescued them.
Yeah, I mean, it helped a lot,
Yes.
but honestly, I think the biggest problem with the prequels, they were trying to tell too large of a story in too few films.
Yeah. I mean, the Clone Wars series kind of helped on that one, but I did like the scale of it. It
Mhm.
That's what I kind of missed from the original trilogy is the scale. It lacked the scale. The entire story, and I
Yeah.
mean, you can disagree, which is more than okay. It's actually quite welcome. But what I lacked from the original trilogy was scale because it felt like everything was within the same solar system. Now, of course, a solar system is a massive damn thing,
Right.
but it felt like the entirety of the Star Wars original trilogy was within just the star system, maybe two at most, which would fit in a
I
way. It would be
mean,
bad, but
everything circles around Tatooine, it seems,
yeah.
which
And
that's a gets a little old a lot fast.
yeah, and already in Phantom Menace, they kind of had the scale, which was much larger than in the three movies put together, for the sole inclusion of the Galactic
Yeah.
Senate. For me, for me,
I mean, I can see where you're coming from, but to me, see, the problem was it's less the like physical scale, and it's more the chronological scale,
okay.
and that's something where so with the original trio of Star Wars movies,
Hmm.
they're within probably like a 7-year period, which kind of runs roughly with the production. Because it gets implied that there's a time gap between A New Hope and Empire. And because you have the characters who like Han and Luke who are kind of like they're growing in their camaraderie. They're
Kind of
there's
getting
definitely
a
some
brotherhood.
it and there's an evolution of the characters. Um and then you get kind of the same between Empire and Return of the Jedi. And
The
again, it's like a 2-year span at most. Probably less than that, but it's not a
time
it's a
scale,
long enough period of time. But there's
yeah.
a scale.
Honestly, I think the time scale is quite similar in both sagas. Because
Well,
Phantom between Phantom Menace and well, actually, the largest time jump is between Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones is like what 10 years?
yeah, and see
Yeah,
that kind of that messes with me.
yeah.
That I don't like, and it's not because and the main reason is there was so much padding in the Phantom Menace, and just a lot of padding, and it's like, oh well, let's do pod racing. It's like, okay, there would have been a better way to introduce pod racing, and then you get I can't remember the kid actor's name, but he played Anakin in the first movie, and it's like they should have made him the same age on screen as Padme. Nothing against the kid, who was acting in it, although apparently he had some psychological problems later on. But it sounds like he's stable now, so that's good. But it's like there shouldn't have been that big of a time jump between the Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones. And the reason I say this simply boils down to Anakin either needs to mature a lot more for that to make sense, or not as much as he did. I don't know if I'm expressing that quite the way I'd like it to come across, but it's like there's some absence of kind of consequences of taking Anakin away at such a young age. And
I think I might know what you mean. In a way, though, he does have that childish streak with him still, though. He's still rebellious. He still kind of has an extended teenage period in Attack of the Clones.
Yes.
But he kind of grows up quickly after his mom dies. And then his essentially mixed feelings with when he falls in, essentially just realizes he's fallen in love with Padme.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, some of the worst parts in Star Wars is the budding romance, but
yeah,
I prefer
don't
better,
ask George Lucas to make romance.
not a budding one. I prefer the romance is much better when it's in he's good at doing established ones. You know, the marriage one.
Mm-hmm.
Because during Revenge of the Sith, I really liked their relationship there. And also the best when Hayden acts, his best acting is when he doesn't say anything. And not because of I hate hearing him speak. It's because if he is to do only emotional acting, that's where he's good. Like the silent scenes when Hayden has to use only his body language and eyes.
What I'm hearing is, and I think this is the most valid criticism of Hayden Christensen, he was given really crap dialogue.
Yes, he was. I wish I could wish away my feelings.
Yeah, no, I'm because honestly, I've seen him in stuff since when he's actually been able to really kind of like get his chops into a role.
Yep.
And has decent dialogue. The man can act. He just can't act with George Lucas's script.
Not at all. Let's see. Should I screw around with the effects on this one?
When it's just a tidge lighter.
I don't have anything here. Maybe
because it's like you made like the layer a little more opaque with the eye.
Let's see.
Or well, not the eye, but the shading around it.
There.
Right there. Yeah, right there.
All right.
Because if you're looking at it, it's like, oh yeah, there we go. There we go, man.
It actually works pretty darn well. Huh. Now, what do
You know, and they kind of did this with, was it Blood and Chrome? I really would like to see
a little question before we start. What do you think? This is I've added a secondary layer now just to make sure.
Okay.
So this is without the secondary layer.
Okay.
And this is the full opacity of the second layer. Now, if I put it like on, say, 69.
Like try. Nice. a little lighter, just a hair lighter. Let's see what that looks
60.
like. Oh yeah, I like that. I
Yeah.
like that.
I'm gonna try 50 just to be certain, and then go back to 60.
Yeah, 50's not bad, but I think 60 just it
Yeah.
does it. It at least for me. You could even go to like let's go to 65. And I think 69's a little dark,
Yeah.
even though it's
Oh
nice.
yeah, this one is nice.
Yeah,
Now, if I
because
add...
it's like because the effect I'm kind of like mentally seeing is the base star is kind of like blotting out a sun, and then you've got all the the shiny and chrome on the Centurion here.
Yep, and I'm just gonna try a little something here. Just a few highlights. Since it's blotting out the sun. There you go. Nothing too fancy. There we go.
Hmm, I like it.
It's fun. It was fun.
It Battlestar, for all of its flaws, and there are a ton of flaws in both the original and the reimagined series. But it's got a lot of fun concepts that I just don't see being explored in a lot of other sci-fi series right now. And I also say this because my favorite like sci-fi series of all time, or not series, but favorite sci-fi movie of all time, is The Forbidden Planet. And
Familiar.
oh my god! All right.
But yeah.
But you're familiar with Leslie Nielsen, the actor.
I'm not good with names. Give me a role she played.
He.
He. No, less.
All right. He was in oh god, he was in Naked Gun.
Oh. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Him.
Yeah, the white-haired dude.
The old guy who bumbles around. Really funny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is when he was young, and like a romantic lead actor.
Really?
Yeah. And here's the thing. It's a movie that like tackles a lot of kind of humanity and what we're capable of, good and evil. It's a damn fine movie. It's actually, like I said, it's one of my favorite movies. And it really tackles some of the like the limits of humanity and our hubris. And to me, that's one of the things that Galactica touches on is our humanity has set itself up for the fall
Yeah, both
by
humans and Cylons kind of like do that.
yes, and the Cylons have fallen into the trap of becoming very human. And I like that. I just I like stories where we're both our own worst enemies, and yet we're also our own best champions.
I mean, the only reason why the rebel Cylons survived and ascended to their own freedom was because they sided with their enemies.
Yes.
Who
But,
in turn...
well, it wasn't just because they were their enemies, but it was because humanity, in our most fucked up form, in a sense,
Yep.
showed that And yes, there's a lot to be said about humans in Galactica being kind of stupid, but at the same time, it was that kind of unbridled hope, that unbridled desire to survive, and that's what separates humanity from everything else. And the Cylons wanted that. That to me, that was like ultimately what the Cylons were after, was that very human, extremely human capacity to survive against all odds.
Was denied when they got the resurrection ships,
Mm-hmm.
and again was reinvigorated after they lost them. But then they again the super colony. There's so many cool concepts which I wish they could have worked more with. Like
Yeah.
another thing I didn't really get into was how you only had 2 dedicated battleships. I would have wanted the fleet to have more variety. You know,
Oh,
more
you
battleships
mean
or
you mean beyond just the Battlestar series,
yeah.
where they
I would have wanted
again.
them to have more ships. Not a again, I would have wanted the civilian ships to have some combat capability. So like you do get the punch of having more warships, but also the increased risk of this is a civilian ship, right? Kind of
Mhm.
like the Quarian fleet from Mass Effect 3, because the Quarians have a
Hmm.
journey that is the Quarians are essentially like the Battlestar Galactica, the Battlestar Galactica story. They were an organic race that created
Mhm.
a synthetic race that became sentient and then rebelled. They took over their home world. The Quarians got this migratory fleet, which they started. It was originally just civilian ships, which they added weapons to, right?
Right.
And you have it just building up from the first to the second to the third game, this massive invasion that the Quarians just now go on an offensive against the Geth, which are their creation. So essentially, imagine if humanity in Battlestar Galactica just armed their fleet to the teeth, still civilian ships, so they were essentially glass cannons,
Hmm.
but they just committed to a full frontal attack on their home world to retake it. Of course, depending on how you play, you can either exterminate the Geth, exterminate the Quarians, or force a ceasefire between them, or really just connect them in a way they never really expected. It's so much you could do with it. Like the only flaw of Mass Effect 3 is its ending.
Mm.
They screwed up the endgame of Mass Effect 3 to a point which pisses me off. But everything in Mass Effect 3 leading up to the invasion of Cerberus Station
Hmm.
before the invasion of Earth is beautiful.
Hmm.
And and I didn't really think about it until now. Now I realize it isn't Terminator. It is Battlestar Galactica.
Hmm.
Holy shit.
Interesting. Huh.
Of course, I chose the part where the Quarians and the Geth united. So imagine a third faction in Battlestar Galactica manages to force a not just a ceasefire,
Hmm.
but a unification between Cylons and humanity.
Humanity.
Yeah,
Interesting.
because there is another faction, the Reapers, the main villains of Mass Effect.
Hmm.
They're the ones pushing the Geth.
Hmm.
God, it's so cool, dude. I really recommend playing if you the trilogy tend to be cheap. I
Hmm.
recommend getting the newer one because they actually have augmented the first Mass Effect game in a remake, which essentially gives it the combat mechanics of the first two of the second and third game, which makes it so much better.
Hmm.
This is a blanket endorsement. Again, the only thing bad, and again, it is bad, but at least it's a conclusion I can live with. Besic has more of an issue with it. I understand the people who hate it. Believe me, it's
Hmm.
the ending of Mass Effect 3 is similar to Star Wars prequel, Star Wars or original trilogy.
Yeah.
It's
Okay.
that kind
All
of
right.
divide, but uh, more reason to dislike the Mass Effect trilogy ending. Anyway, they kind of fixed it. I can accept it. I can force it down and
Mm-hmm.
still feel this satisfaction with completing the game. The journey, dude, of all three games is fantastic.
Hmm.
God, I want to do a Simply Sketchy of Mass Effect as well.
Well, I'm not gonna stop you.
Well, play the games. We can do it then, dude.
And do they do like a co-op, and then we could play them together?
Like, if you want to play them, I can sort of backseat you if you want.
Yeah, yeah. We might have to look into that. Yeah.
Hell, I'd love to see Mass Effect again. Oh, man, experience Mass Effect again through your eyes. Hey, I'm fucking down.
All right.
I love Mass Effect, dude.
I'll put it on my Steam wish list.
It's excellent. The Mass Effect fan base grows ever larger. Right. But yeah, that aside, and holy crap, thank you. I didn't really see it that way. Now that I see it from this angle,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, the Geth and the Cylons. Of course, there's a lot of other inspirations too. Like Mass Effect didn't become Mass Effect until BioWare was denied to make a Star Wars game after KOTOR.
Mm.
Yeah. Then they made Mass Effect, and it's just fucking rocked the world.
Huh.
But yeah, there was so much interesting shit. Anyway, but yeah, that's essentially what we have on the Cylons, right? On Battlestar Galactica, the series.
I think so. And it's one of those. It came from a time when there were so many people doing like just really hokey, crappy copies of Star Wars. Right? Hell, even Star Trek is kind of guilty of doing that in a sense. And then you get Battlestar Galactica, which is genuinely like one of the it shouldn't be this good kind of thing. Yeah, there should it should kind of suck. And not in a like this is a bad series, but yeah, it's like you think with like the special effects of the time, the fact that it was designed for like a TV miniseries, and then this is how you end up. You end up with basically one of the more underrated sci-fi series of all time.
Since we're
And
not wanting to watch Battlestar Galactica, is essentially me unable to watch it alone. However, if one of my friends locally wanted to watch this with me, I think I would be down for it.
yeah, honestly, you ought to look into it and watch it with a very critical eye. It does need a critical eye. But I'll tell you, the thing that really stood out to me watching it, and again, this is from watching the original and then into the reimagined series. They really do spend a lot of time trying to like understand the characters and not have it in kind of like this mystical, weird way that some of the original series did. Because Adama became like a seer of sorts in the original series, where he didn't in this.
Because
And
the spiritual part of Battlestar Galactica was a lot more heavy-handed in the original series, while
yes,
they had a very more kind of a modern religious view on it, because it is enough happening that you're questioning it, but you can still really, if you wanna explain it away, you can still manage to do that.
mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's definitely both shows are of their era, so late 70s and also mid 2000s with all the cynicism of the Bush years.
Yeah.
Uh, Man, I tell you, it's a fascinating study in a lot of ways, and it gives you a lot. It's thought provoking, which I can't say that I get from a lot of series anymore. So much is just like blatant in your face. Yes, we're going to tell you each and everything,
This kind of goes
and
back
I
to
don't
something we
want
talked.
to. I want the nebulousness, and that was, I think, part of the problem with the reimagined series was they started leaning a little too much on, well, let's show you everything, where really didn't want to know everything. I didn't want to know half the things that
Kind
I
of a thing
figured
that has
out, you
been
know?
it's kind of a thing that has been lost in modern fiction.
Yes,
The subtlety of things. I think we talked about this before, haven't we?
we have. And I don't know if we got it on. No, talked about it a little bit with the Wampus Cat.
Yep.
Um, Despite what Bezic says, not a furry. Um,
See, so if you want to hire me for a furry, there can still be someone to claim the title of having me draw the first furry. Because it
yeah.
wasn't a furry, damn it, it's a mythological creature. So unless you condemn an entire group of people, the Native Americans, to be furries, one and all, then it wasn't furry.
That's a challenge, Bezic. You've got to become very subtle very quick. Yeah, it's just, you look at like the way things are told these days. It's very much like, hey, things happening shows things happening. Yeah, we're all going to get killed shows characters getting killed. It's just like blatant and stupid, and I hate it. And
Should we wrap up here?
well, I just want to follow up with the third man.
Yeah, go on.
So there's a lot of stuff that's like told just from exposition,
Oh,
and there's also a lot of visual storytelling. And I think visual storytelling has been abandoned by a lot of modern movie making. I just really do. Because there are times when you look at, like, the way a story is told,
yeah.
and they'll be very explicit and very in your face about it. But if you could, like, find a way to, like, visually represent it or do some allegorical storytelling visually, it's a lot more powerful, and it gives people something to think about. Like the original Blade Runner, like, with the origami birds and whatnot. That's like,
So the
okay,
the speech at the end, Tears in the Rain.
mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, stuff like that where, you know, well, that's not visual storytelling. That's expositional storytelling, but it does make your brain connect dots that normally it wouldn't. What I'm talking about is, like, like a slow pan over, like, say for D-Day, the Normandy invasion, and there's like a slow pan, and you see a dead body and a helmet filled with seawater and blood, and it just kind of pans, and you think, oh, this has been like horrible devastation, but it's not. You don't see the guy die. You don't see the body get eviscerated by a mortar round, but you kind of intrinsically know it in a way that is like, oh, this is horrible, this is tragic.
See,
And
see
that's something I
of
think
the
is
impact, right?
missing.
Yeah, you get to see the impact of the crater where the mortar hit. You get to see the result of it, so you can put the pieces up in your head, right?
Yeah, yeah, and it makes the audience a participant. And that, right now it's like, hey, stupid, you need to figure out that we're telling you this exact thing over here. Like, no, go fuck yourself.
That's another thing that the Blink did really well. It
Hmm.
made you a part of the whole of the
Yeah,
experience because it broke the fourth wall. the angels froze when you looked at them too,
Mm-hmm.
which in turn made it far more stressful, which is why I love it.
Yeah. Good storytelling is hard to do. It shouldn't be. It's made difficult by stupid people.
Yep. But that is because they are talentless hacks who are given all the resources that talented people deserve. Uh, Now, I think we need to wrap up, but before that, just a little bit
Yes.
of your view is needed for this. Because
All
I started
right.
thinking about that, the lines themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this is full line, heavy lines.
Okay.
What if I put them down to nice, right? And now I
Hmm.
remove them completely.
Let's see full again. I personally kind of like somewhere between there and nice.
So,
Yeah, right about there.
yeah.
Right there.
Thus, they don't stand out as hard, which helps the shadows stick out a bit more.
Right, but we're talking, we've got a mechanical being, so the lines should be hard.
Exactly. I'm
That
really, I'm really happy
that's
about how
really
this turned
good.
out. Thank you.
I like the perspective that it's got. I like the and just the art itself and the fact that there's only that one bit of color,
Yeah.
and that's what matters.
White, black, and red. You can work magic with those two, those three.
Yes, you can.
So,
I think you found your medium, sir.
thank you. Kind of starting to get there. Coloring is nice, but this just feels more comfortable. And
Good,
in the
good.
end,
Yeah, yeah.
I'm not a professional artist anyway, so doing this for comfort is essentially all I require to do.
Well, and to compliment you, you're doing a much better job with some forced perspective on this Cylon.
Yeah, thank you. Again, it is experimentation. It is learning, and while I found the black and white to do really well, I still need to work on perspective because that's kind of been my nemesis for most of the time I've been doing this shit.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah. So, as we now entering the closing section here, I would like to thank you, Bleach Demon, very much for joining me on this and for yet another good conversation. Going much deeper than I thought actually we could do with this. Holy crap. It is. No, seriously, I had not really realized that the Cylons and the Geth were essentially the same. It's kind of
They're
mind-blowing
very
right now.
similar. Yeah,
It's I love it.
it's cool because
Yes.
you know,
And it's not just
and
that.
it's one
It's
of
not just
those.
that. It's not just that. I'm sorry for interrupting, but there's this one character in Mass Effect 2 and 3 that is played by, you know, that blonde Cylon chick?
Trisha Helfner.
Yeah, the one who was with Balthazar, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Caprica 6.
Yes.
Trisha Helfner. Yeah.
Yeah, she is also one of the main character cast in Mass Effect 2 and 3.
Really?
Yes.
Huh.
More reason to play it.
Well, I'm she. It's like, yeah, she might be a vegetarian, but I gotta say, she really is a fantastic actress.
She is.
I haven't seen all of her works, but when she's well directed, she is a fantastic actress, and you know, and that's something where I I like the idea of making sure, even people get too wrapped up in the politics of actors and actresses, which is stupid. But you get somebody like her where it's like, she seems like she's got talent, and I'm gonna compliment talent when I see talent.
Yes.
Oh, wow! Did you know she also voice acted Sonya Blade in Mortal Kombat 10?
See why. I can see why.
Mm-hmm.
I like it when when good actors or those who are good at their jobs get to do their job.
Yeah, it's like, shut up and act. And when you do that, I am willing to, yeah, watch your shit as long as you do. You just do that. So, yeah. Hell, it's worked before. With the voice actor that, well, actually just the actor who plays Hans Capon on Kingdom Come Deliverance. Fantastic guy. But yeah, Trisha Helfer, if you ever stumble upon this, fantastic actress. Keep doing what you're doing. Maybe you'll get a follower who is a celebrity, Trim.
We see. Though, for you know her as the Cylon, but for me, she will always be Edie. Play Mass Effect 3.
Who cares? She can act, and she's an attractive lady.
Yeah. This episode of Simply Sketchy to a close. Again, I would like to thank you, Bleach, for joining me.
You would like to thought me? Wow, thank you, sir.
Yes, you already thought it, huh? But you are not really a stranger to the internet. So where can people find you?
They can find me on YouTube with the Bleach Demon. I'm also on Rumble with the Bleach Demon and my new project, Radio Diversity.
Honestly, the best usage of AI music I've heard my entire life. Seriously, check it out. My favorite song is New York. Give it a listen, you'll figure out why.
And thank you, Trim, for hosting me. I appreciate. I just appreciate being able to get my thoughts out there and recorded for all of humanity.
It's a really good time. Again, I get to do what I like to do. I get to talk with a good friend, and we get to cover a lot of good subject matter. This is just as much a pleasure for me, dude. Thank you for joining. Always appreciate it.
Thank you much. Bye.
So, in case any of you want to hire me to draw art for you, again, I do black and white. I can also do colors. Maybe, kind of. What are colors even? You can find a link to my Ko-Fi down below. You will also be able to, if you should feel this insane urge to put my work on some clothing or some merch, you can also find a link to my merch store in the link down below. And with that, I would like to thank everyone who's been watching for the views, for clicking on and listening to us two ramble like maniacs, or rather listening to Bleach talk like a human being and me just making whatever noises I'm capable of making, and watching me do my best at drawing art. Thank you all very much for watching, and have a nice day. Bye, everyone.
Ah! You didn't hit stop recording yet, so
No.
I figured I'd dick it up.